हरि ओम। ओम नमो नारायणाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। नारायणसमारम्भाम् आचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। नाहं कर्ता हरिकर्ता पूजाकर्मसाखिलं यद्यत् कर्म करोमि तत्कृतं शम्भो Adhyatmic also? Huh? Which one? Saints. Okay. So saints when we say that, but more particularly we say Guru. Because all saints will not fall in that particular category. Because, they have physical existence, they are definitely called as Adi Gopika. They have got some mysterious power that they can transform the fate of a disciple by touch, then by sight, and by mere sankalp. You don't have to do anything specific activity in by sankalp also. Not really. Adi Vedic drops down to it. And Adhyatmic in what sense that when we worship the Guru, implicitly and explicitly, then there is a kind of a spiritual unity. At the level of the Atman, Guru and the disciple are not different. So that will be what the Atman. So this is just my way of thinking. I never read it like that. But I feel Guru is a very special manifestation who can be considered as a special manifestation of Ishvara, and that comes to us. Why? That comes to us in form of a special grace, in form of special communication. So Mahapurushas say that whenever the Supreme Reality is pleased with you, wants to bless you, impart the most intricate surface knowledge of yourself, that very Paramatman manifests in front of you as a Guru. And that is why we say that Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Dev, everybody knows these words. If you ask any individual, it is one word given by this. If you have any other person, at least ask them, everybody will decide it. They may not be right, correct in Sanskrit, but this is known to everybody. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat, people don't say Param Brahma, it is not Param Brahma, that's means to be the So that is the definition of the Guru. We want to see about that today. Before that, something which I just could not see over yesterday. I want to give you touch upon that before we go further. When we say the God is all things, right? And we discuss about Adi-Vedic first. So Adi-Vedic are those species or those creations which are higher than human beings. They have got some supernatural powers and they are able to control the universe. And they are present at a cosmic level as well as at an individual level. Okay? And that is how they are able to function. Okay? So now we worship them. Yesterday also we tried to see that there are 23 Avataras like that, deities. Now, the beauty in the Bhagavan teaches in chapter number 7 of Bhagavad Gita, that is Jnana Vijnana Yoga. In chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, that is Vibhuti Yoga. So what is common between these two chapters? That they try to present different manifestations of Paramatma in different forms. We will not be able to see everything right now, but just want to give a glimpse of it. If you read minutely, you will be able to see that all Adideva, Adi-Bhautik and Adhyatmic forms are manifested there. But when we say, Bhagavan says, Adityanam, Aham Vishnu. Among the 12 Adityas, I am the Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravi Anshuman. Among the resplendent, I am the sun. And Rudranam Shankara Prasmi. Among the Rudra and the Shankara. So what do we read out of this? So when he says that among the 12 Adityas, I am the Vishnu, and among the Rudra and Shankara, and among the Jyotisham, objective and the sun. So what about the other Adityas? What about the other Rudras? Are they not manifestations of Ishvara? Yeah. Then why would Ishvara say that this year? You can see that the most conspicuous, most splendorous, most distinctive aspects are present here. Why? God is pervading everywhere among all the deities and uniformly, homogeneously. It is not uneven also. It is not that more in Vishnu and less in Radha. It is not like that. But then also why God says like this? That is because our mind and intellect will very easily reconcile with this. Because we we know the glory, we know the efficacy, we know the strength of this vision manifestation. And it will be very easy for us to accept them as a manifestation of Ishvara and God. And gradually, as we go deeper and deeper, we will be able to behold all forms of deities, all forms of God Ishvara as manifestation of Ishvara. So we just can't start with a lower one. Our mind will be reluctant to accept. Our mind has got so many taboos, obstacles. It has got its own ahankara, own ideas, own subjectivities. So Bhagavan, in a very nice psychological way, explains that what is most convincing, most appealing, we start with that. We begin with the manifestation of God and gradually everything will start. So that is how I understand this is the beauty in this Bhagavan experience. Again, if you consider the Adi Bhautika form, right, there is material universe. Right? And before I say further, let me also say one thing, that in each Shanti part also that we perform, right, every time. We always say at the end, Om Shanti, 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 like that. So what is this Sri Shanti? Why do you call like that?
Space surrounding and personal.
No, but there are again these three aspects only. Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivi, and Adi. So these three kinds of afflictions are there, three kinds of sufferings are there, three kinds of pains are there. Here we are not looking at a source of pain. Here we are looking at a source of manifestation and Ishvara. There's a difference in there. So that is also important. Because always we find some kind of obstacle, some kind of disturbance, we need to work on that. That is the prayer mind for Shanti. Before any particular stotra or lecture is conducted, normally people chant Shanti Part. Every Upanishad also has got a corresponding Shanti Part. So that part is there. But here we are not looking at these three manifestations as sources of suffering or conflict, but as manifestation of Ishvara. There is a completely different vision we are trying to have here when we discuss about this aspect. But if you talk in terms of affliction also, so this, when you say Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmik is all at the level of body and at the level of mind. So physical and mental afflictions, as you know, physical hundreds and several thousands of diseases which we were never knowing before, so many years before. Today they have started manifesting. You have got a term called autoimmune disease. When you can't identify the causality of any disease, it is called autoimmune disease. Immune system is dysfunction when you are having disease. Number of autoimmune diseases. Mental disease, there is no dearth of that. They list a long list, again talking in terms of central anxiety, depression, affecting the worldwide, also in countries like India also. So they are suffering from this particular Adhyatmik tapas, they call. Similarly, in terms of Adi Bhautik, if you consider, then that is other than this particular being. So all other human beings, when they are following world and what is taking place, okay? That particular thing, or any other subhuman species, like starting from mosquito at night to everything, also can be a cause of disturbance. That's all part of the Adi Bhautika. And then Adi Daivika is what we cannot see clearly, but we can feel the effect of that. All this environmental degradation, what we see today, the terrible heat that has come, the famine and these rains and everything, they are called Adi Daivika. There is no control. And they are also called Samashti. There is a word called Samashti. Just as the Yashti Prarabdha, individual fate, there is also a fate for the word Samashti, called as Samashti Prarabdha. In case of COVID, what we experienced, that was Samashti Prarabdha. Not one particular individual, but the Adi Daivika Tapa, which was prevailing at all the level. So it can be at Samashti level also. And there are different periods, different positions for that. So we were discussing about all these aspects. Now, one more thing. Among this Adi Bhautika form, we don't know read many. Bhagavan says that Rasaha Amam Apsu. Matlab, just in case of water. Ultimately, any liquid water, ultimately that rasa or the essence comes in water. And Prabha Asmi Sasi Suryo. So, I am the right among the sun and the moon. Pranava is syllable in the Vedas, then sound in the ether, reality in the man, Punya Gandha, Uttira, the beautiful fragrance which emanates from the earth, brilliance in the fire, life in all the beings, even Sarvabhutesh. As we said that there are two Prakrutis, Para and Para. So Para Prakriti is the one which gives even life, sentience or consciousness. And eternal sleep of all beings, intelligence and intelligence, all various things, and mainly Dharma Avruta Karmeshu. That's what we will be doing. That when we say Kama, then the desires. So there is a difference between Ichha and Ichha Shakti. Very important we know to this. Ichha or the desires, are the normal tendencies of the human mind. Because of various sanskaras which we have, because of that sattvaras and tamas which we have different desires. And desires we call raga and dvesha. And they are considered to be objectionable. But Ichha Shakti is different. And Ichha Shakti is a part of the God's supreme will that God has got to run the whole universe, and a particular duty is assigned to us. So Ichha Shakti that you call, that will power, that you are discussing, that is considered a very high faculty in human being, and it is very close to Ishvara. The Ichha Shakti or will power is not something which is to be equated with commonly what is called as a Ichha. The Ichha Shakti is a desirable attribute, and here Bhagavan says, Dharma Aviruddha Kameshu, that all those desires which are not contrary to Dharma, they are basically non-manifestation. So why God says this? Because the karma is something which is very essential individually and at the level of samashti for the very sustenance of the universe. So karma is so intrinsic to us that whether we want or whether we do not want, we cannot stay without doing an action even for a second. If you are not doing anything physically, at least you are always thinking something mental karma is going on. So without performing karma, nobody can survive, nobody can stay even for a second also. So why is it like this? And on the other side you say that if you do karma, then the karma calls karma vindana. Then once you perform the karma, then you get the karma phala. And karma phala is again that birth will take place, transformation cycle will take place. So karma is considered judgment. On the other side, Bhagavan says, Dharma Aviruddha Kameshu. So desires, and once we have the desire, then we go on to different work. So that Bhagavad Gita's central message is actually this, that what normally the karma or the action, if it is performed with raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes, then it becomes a cause of bondage because it leads to karma phala. But that very karma, if it is performed in the spirit of karma yoga, it is spirit of that karma yoga. So here the same thing is there, that we feel the omnipresence of Ishvara everywhere. Whenever we act, we do not act as a consequence or as a sequelae to our ahankara. Most of the work acts which we do is basically because of our ahankara says that. But we do not do any work because of an emanation of the ahankara, but just as an act of offering to Ishvara. And that day also using the word Dharma. And in Bhagavad Gita also, whenever the word Dharma comes, it basically means work. So once you perform an action, feeling the omnipresence of Ishvara everywhere, whatever what I am doing is not born out of my individual likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha or ahankara, but it is a part of the duty esteemed by Ishvara to me. I am fulfilling it as a part of the supreme plan of the Ishvara. And because I have got no likes and dislikes, obviously I am not very clear about the karma phala also. It is not that karma phala will not come. Once you perform the karma phala is bound to occur. That's the law of the karma. But because my karma is not motivated, my karma is not emanated from my raga and dvesha, but as an act of offering to Ishvara, as a part of His divine destiny, what He has meant for us, I do it as an act of worship to Ishvara, and whatever karma phala will come. Karma phala is bound to come, because that's the law of the karma. And whatever the karma phala will come, that karma phala, I take it as a prasad. That is called the prasad buddhi. So this is the, in a nutshell, the meaning of karma yoga in Bhagavad Gita. And if you see Bhagavad Gita, right from chapter 2 to chapter 18, in one way or the other, you will find verses referring to karma. Although primarily it is there in chapter 2 and 3, but in chapter 18 you can find this reference. So that is basically the whole spirit of karma. So karma is something which is not a binding but an activating force. And Bhagavan Bhagavan says here in Bhagavad Gita that if karma is so natural to you, the desire for karma is so natural to you, how can it be it is always binding? How can it be always a force of bondage for you? So it can't be that if it is so natural to us. So in that sense, the karma and the desire for performing karma are basically a divine plan for reaching to God, to the karma. And how does it do it? Because once we do that karma, all the raga and dvesha which are there, is called the impurity of karma, that is physically impure. And that is the first step. Because once you want to achieve the Godhead, there are three obstacles physically. The first one is the impurities of the antahkarana. That is called as the raga and dvesha. And as long as they are there, no further progress can take place. That is why at Sir Rao, they start the service. Even the Raja Yoga also you see, it also basically starts from Niyama and Niyama, ethical purity. So that once you have all this sadhana, the main objective is your antahkarana is rendered pure. And when you say pure, it means free from raga and dvesha. That's the first requirement. Then what next? There are three basically obstacles of mind. The first thing is this raga and dvesha impurity. Second thing is vikshepa, another dosha of mind. It constantly keeps on fluctuating. Mind will not be able to concentrate even for a little while on any object. Let alone mind. They say that your body cannot stay still. That is important in yogasana also. That stealing a mind is a difficult task. But sitting quiet without any movement is also a difficult task. And that is how the yogasana starts with that asana, that we are able to steady the body. Once we are able to steady the body, second comes steadying the prana. Because prana is something which is throughout pervading and running the entire biology, physiology of a system. And that prana also, instead of just moving in zigzag manner, in a well-directed manner, if you know that prana, it can heal so many diseases. Swami Maharaj used to pranic healing therapy also, that by concentrating prana going to a place, you are able to heal that. So that prana also that, and then comes the mind. So mind is even more difficult to concentrate compared to this body and prana. But all of them are interlinked. Even if you do good asana, good pranayama or good jnana, all will help one another. What is important here we are trying to see is the first obstacle was in terms of impurity of the mind, which is overcome by karma. Bhakti yoga also has in some way, but primarily is the second main obstacle is this tossing nature of the mind or vikshepa. That can be overcome by bhakti yoga mainly. Karma yoga also has a lot interconnected, but largely, predominantly, it is bhakti yoga. When the mind just concentrates on a deity that is chosen, and then it's very easy to concentrate the mind on any particular deity of your choice or Ishta Devata compared to any other object. Compared to any other object, it is easier to settle the mind on Ishta Devata. So the other inner obstacle of the tossing nature of the mind or the vikshepa is also overcome by bhakti. And you can also improve Raja Yoga also. But Raja Yoga practice, what we do, Yam Niyam Asana Dhyana Jnana Samadhi, also helps us in controlling the tossing or the fluctuating nature of the mind. So one obstacle is over, that is mainly the impurity of the mind, mano, what they call it. Do you know that why one of the name of the Atma is Amal? Why it is called Amal? Mind is not called Amal. Mind is called Nirmal. This is another Nirmal, Shuddhamana. Atma is not called like that. Atma is called Amal. You thought about this. Very subtle difference is there. Because when you say Nirmal, Nirmal Jal we say, or Nirmal Mind when we say, well, that means it can be both pure as well as impure. Sometimes pure, sometimes impure. So it has a tendency to become impure and it can be purified. So body can be purified, we do our things, mind can be purified, but Atman, no need to purify. Unless we consider as in connection with this body and mind as a jiva. But Atman is pure in its intrinsic form, Swarupa Lakshana, that's the word. Right? And that is why the word Amal. If you read carefully the scriptures, apparently it will not be seen the difference. But the word Amala will signify the Atman. But or someone that can be for the body and mind. Likewise fear also. So sometimes the mind can be fearful, sometimes mind can be fearless. You can call Atman fearless Atman. It may be used as a language for a different thing. But you call fearless Atman, you do not say like that. You know. Fearless mind, yes. Body, of course, you did not say that. But fearless intellect, fearless mind. But for Atman, you don't use the word fearless. Why? Because there can't be duality in Atman. Atman in its Swarupa has to be Shuddha, has to be pure. Atman by its Swarupa has to be fearless. That is why in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Abhayam Sattu Santutti, Jnana also. Abhayam is the first thing that is. So Abhaya is not used for mind. It's a very, very small difference, very subtle difference. But you notice it, that Abhaya is used for Atman. Abhaya is not used for, you use it, it is not an error if you say like that. But in technical terms, if you say, it is not. So Abhaya stands for what? Abhaya stands for Atman. How much stands for Atman? Because there is no duality. He is always pure, always fearless. Right? And other mind and body, they can have both, depending upon the circumstances. But that is how, once we have that Raja Yoga and Bhakti Yoga practice, in that case, what happens? That mind becomes stable. The first problem of impurity overcome mainly by Karma Yoga. And if we do not do Karma Yoga, it will not happen in life. And that is how this, all the teachings, service comes first, and if you read the essential teachings of Gurudeva, and then also it is said that be good, do good. So when you say be good, do good, it again refers to Karma Yoga. Today is not the time because we miss the subject, but maybe if you have a time, I just try to touch upon that. That being good and doing good, or service alone is not the ultimate goal of spiritual Swamiji. Swamiji's own deeper analysis of his thought. Maybe we can touch upon it later, if time permits here. But here what we are trying to say is that impurity is what? Service is the first step in a spiritual ladder. And Swami Shivananda Maharaj has said that many have risen to the magnanimous heights of divine splendor by power of service alone. Vedanta means normal class everyone accept this. They will say that Karma Yoga is only a preparatory, and in Bhagavad Gita also they say there are two types of Nishtha. So one is Karma Nishtha and Jnana Nishtha. So it is only for Karma Yoga, you very well intellect, only when you go to the Guru and when you learn that the Jnana comes, that only liberates. But there are instances, there are exceptions, and in Gurudeva's language I am saying that many have risen to magnanimous heights of divine splendor by power of service alone. This is because service, bhakti and jnana are not completely separable. Although they look different, but there are grounds of interconnectedness. That's the beauty of that seva and purifying this mind. Then comes the bhakti, which is that the Avishya Yoga. And what more problem is there? Three doshas are there. One is this Mala, second is Vikshepam, and third is, even if you consider that you have performed Karma Yoga properly, our mind is purified, intellect is also rendered subtle, then once you have got this Bhakti Yoga also, mind is able to concentrate, intellect also becomes sharpened, Shushma hoga, Shuddha hoga, like that, and still hoga. Then क्या problem है? What other problem? Two main obstacles are overcome: Maya, impurity, and tossing of the oscillation. Now what problem? Ahankara is there everywhere, but Ahankara in form of avana, we call it. Will, V-I-L, not everybody will call it. V-I-L, one which covers the world. So there is the will, Maya Shakti, Vishya Shakti, and willing power. These are the two dominant powers of Maya. So once we purify the Anthakarana, steady with the Bhakti Yoga, ultimately still that Abhinana is there, ignorance is there. And here comes the role of a Guru. Here comes the role of a Guru. That Abhinana, it is not the Abhinana of an ordinary worldly subject. It is the Abhinana of your own self, who you are. People may think that you are a very simple question, but that is the most difficult question to answer. And the more we know, rather, we know more about what we are not, rather than what we are. That's the biggest problem spiritual matter. And that is the problem of mankind as a whole. And I told you the first year also, that Abhinayana or this called Avara Shakti Abhinayana is a part of that Maya Shakti. And because we are born with ignorance and our sensitive karma we are born. If we had no ignorance, we would not have been born. We are liberated stage in that case, So that no transmigration, no is born from one to the other. But because Abhinayana is there, this birth and rebirth is taking place. And Jayant Swamiji always used to say in his talks also, that once we are born, people say that we are born alone and we are going alone. That is a very simple way of saying. We are born alone and we have to go alone. That's fine. But in one sense, it is not true. We are not born alone, but we are born along with the sanskara of the previous birth. Along with the sanskara of the previous birth. And those are embedded in Chitta, as somebody was discussing. Chitta is a storehouse, That's embedded. So we are born with our sanskara. We have not come empty. We have come with a package. And when we travel, to some other place, what we do? We go 15 kg, airline puts a stitch, otherwise we will accept that also. And once you come back, any effort you do, always the luggage will increase. It will never be possible that we will be able to come with any certain luggage. So here also it happens like that we carry some luggage of that karma phala. Like apurva, adushta karma, that's called as adushta karma or apurva. And when we come here, a long explanation is there. But we perform these actions guided by Ranya and Davisha. Do as a karma. If aham karta ahankara. With the spirit of I am doing that work, then I become the experience. And that luggage keeps on increasing. So that again that transmigration will continue. So the goal is what? That this particular burden and impression that we have got have to be reduced. If not eliminated. If not, eliminate. So, ideal thing is to eliminate that. See, as you all know, there are three kinds of karmas. Which are they? One is sanchit karma, one is agami karma, and one is karma. So this has been taught to very well. So, all that karma phala that is accumulated over so many years and births, that is called as a sanchit karma. Accumulated wealth. Wealth or liability, what you call it, that is accumulated. Then, out of that, a small portion of that is to be experienced. And for experiencing that karma phala, we get a particular body, we get a particular mind. And we are born here. So that is called as a prarabdha karma. And prarabdha karma has to go on. So people say that even those great rishis like Swami Swarnaji Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi, Aurobindo, Aurobindo, that once they attain the realization also, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's classical example, they say that they kept on experiencing the physical afflictions of the body, and they also have a number of physical ailments. Despite he was a medical doctor, still he had plenty of problems. So people say that even when you realize, that prarabdha karma, you have to experience in the lesser part. That is Vyavahik drashti. But purely from the Paramahantic drashti, it will not be true. Why? Because once you attain the realization, you are found, you are one with your Atman. There is no connection, there is no cognition of what is happening to your body, what is happening to your mind. This Parikshit and Srimad Bhagavata also, you know that. Ultimately at the end of the seventh day, he is unconcerned about that snake which is going to take place. Because that body is completely dissociated from that. So that is the state, that Sanchita karma, what we say, and Prarabdha karma, we may say that we experience it, but then you will have no cognition of it. Right? Otherwise, whatever you have come, you experience that. And sometimes when you get some problem, you should not bother, because you should think it as part of Prarabdha karma, and even if it is slightly exhausted, that's the consolation. When you have some problem, instead of thinking very bad about it, you may think that Prarabdha karma is even exhausted by itself, so why do I worry? That's one way we can look at it as an ordinary motor body. That's why we're discussing about the sanchit karma, prarabdha karma and agami karma. So agami karma, how do we do? So that there are no karma phala in spirit of karma. In spirit of karma. People say that this birth is there to experience the previous birth's rights and wrongs, sins and So what will we do about it? So we are going to experience one situation, we are experiencing good or bad things. And here also Mahapurushas, particularly Swami Maharaj, have read his books, he says that we have no control or no choice about what will happen to us. But we have a choice, free will, about how to respond to that. So when illness is to come to me, let illness come. Accident has to happen to me, let that happen. It may be out of my plan. But how I react to that, that is what fundamental. So human birth is given not just for experiencing this karma. That's a minor part. It is not wrong, minor part. But more important is, how do you react? How do you respond to it? If you respond to it in a responsible way, in a wisdom-filled way, then that agami karma will not become binding to us. So that is karma, in other words, called karma. So agami karma we will do with the wisdom, there will be no further addition to that burden which you have brought. Right? So that burden will be there reducing, they are not adding to it, and they are experiencing them. And that is one part. But still, a large chunk of karma phala will remain. So what will happen to that? How do we liquidate that? We do wisely so that we are not doing any further wrong actions. We are experiencing one part of it, whatever was accumulated. What happens to that bank balance, which is not very desirable bank balance? So they say that either we perform Jnana Marga or we perform Bhakti Marga. There is a potential that that particular baggage, that particular accumulated karma phalas can be liquidated, can be nullified. More particularly in case of Jnana Yoga, they say like that. Ultimately, Jnana has a power. Just as fire can burn anything, that is organic. It can also burn all the sanchit karma. So just as, sometimes a special privilege is given to some prisoners by the rulers like that also. Here, that Jnana, realization of the self for the God, if we are able to attain that, in that case, a sanchit karma phala can also be destroyed. And same thing in the opponent case of Bhakti also. Because in case of Jnana Yoga, there is a prarabdha involved, that you have to work, you have to work. Purushartha involved. But in case of Bhakti Yoga, it is more of prarabdha. You are not worrying anything about, anything may happen to me. But it is just my abidance in Ishvara. What Prahlada said is that Shiromani Bhakta Shiromani. So that maybe it will be a Pranay Bhakti or whatever. But then that is also a liberation. That is also a way to lead to. So Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, you will consider like this. So whatever the accumulated karmas are there, they have to be nullified, they have to be exhausted, and that is where you need the help of a guru. So real what we say, Avarana Shakti, that is something so natural to us that normally by self-effort it will not work. See, any objective knowledge of the world, if you want to be a medical doctor, practicing advocate, IT specialist, then you require a personal teacher who is well versed in the subject. And there also it doesn't happen, that we can learn by ourselves. And if you learn by ourselves, what will happen? We will learn something, Allah, we will learn something and pervert also. And perverted knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance, That perverted knowledge is that if you remove that first, then you get the knowledge. So, a guru is important in every walk of life. It's called teacher now. In the spiritual realm, guru is considered an absolute necessity. Why? Why can't we do it by our own self? See, the other subjects are there. As I said, there also a teacher helps and we do it. And without teacher also, if somebody wants to do it, then somebody may do it, but if there is a very long time, there are risks, you will learn something wrong. But in case of spiritual subject matter, one is the knowledge of the field, that is Kshetra, where science and art is performing. Other is the field of Kshetra. Here you want to know who I am. So that particular thing is will power of the Maya, and that cannot be eliminated without the help of good. But also, the 7th chapter, 14th verse is saying, Daivi Hesha Gunamaya, Mama Maya Duratya, Mam Eva Prakriti Maya Metan Karana. So, that this Maya Shakti, mysterious power of the Ishvara, it cannot be overcome. So, it is subordinate to Ishvara. If I take help of Ishvara, it can help. So, actually, Ishvara in various forms But sometimes we feel Ishvara is remote to us, or not easily accessible to us. We may not think of all these Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, different deities, we perform pujas, or Adi Bhautik and all that very feel. But Guru is the most direct manifestation. Very easily accessible to us. It can be considered all Adi Bhautik, Adi Adhyatmic form also. And even in that Mahapurusha say that this Guru is the end of all Ishtadevata also. Whatever is Ishtadevata, right? There are 5 principal deities are there, right? Like Vishnu, this Shiva, this deity, and this maybe Ganesha and this Mahadev. Then also all these Ishtadeva ultimately communicate to Guru. Even if it is your deity is Ishtadevata, and chain is Guru. So when we worship the Guru, it is not just a physical form of Guru, but it is a terminal of that divine cycle which comes. So all the Ishtadevata also ultimately come through Guru. It ends up in Guru. So if you worship the Guru, we are also worshipping our Ishtadevata. These are words of the sages I am saying. And that is why in some of the books, atSivananda say that when you want to meditate your Ishtadevata also, and you are able to do it very easily, the first thing which you can try to do is that you can first meditate on the form of Guru, which is more natural to you. It is something more physically known to you. And that way if you do that, your mind will settle easily, and then later on it can be transformed attention to the Ishtadevata. That is one way meditation can be practiced accordingly. So Guru, as I say, is Ishtadevata included. Adidevic mind is also included. And as we say in the first day, that the Guru has to be Brahmanishta and Kshatriya. Now we may not always be able to find that, but understand that we are also having limitations. So even if they say that Sakshat Paramatma also comes in front of us, we may fail to recognize. Limitations are our part. So, but we have to play God, that may you come to me, grace my life in form of a Guru. And that is Ishvara's grace that manifests in terms of a Guru. And that Guru ideal should be Brahmanishta, that who has realized that very essence what they are saying. And he has realized not by his own thought processes. You have to have recourse to scriptures. In today's time, there are so many sampradayas and so many institutions and so many spiritual leaders, they only talk what they think is the ultimate truth. Actually, their teaching is also coming from books and scriptures, not coming from them. But you must realize that ultimate authority has to be scripture. If you don't do that, you will not be the right path. So, you may have secondary, tertiary, quaternary knowledge, but the primary it has to be from the scripture. Any guru is not giving anything of his own. He or she is making a very logical, very wisdom interpretation of what the scripture is saying, in a form which we can understand. So that way, that Guru is Brahmanishta also, that Guru is Kshatriya, knows it, and not that the entire shlokas are known to him, but the entire essence is known to him. Right? And once he has realized that state, only in that case, he will be able to bring about that transformation. They say there are 3 different types of teachers. First, teachers they command, they only show the way, and this is the way of Guru. There are some teachers who can impart knowledge. When somebody refers to a Sattvic story, so many people are Sattvic story. People like even I maybe got Sattvic story. That we have noble intention, we have faith, we have reverence, we have got some knowledge. But that knowledge is still moksha. That knowledge is still not direct, not intimately experienced. So, that level of teacher, that level of guru will take you to some point. In life, we can have one Sadhguru, but we can have various teachers, various gurus. We can learn from everything. Every element in life, something offers to us. So there can be many teachers for us. There can be many teachers. But Guru or Sadhguru has to be one. So only if we stick to that one particular Guru and go deep and deep, we are able to go very closely to what we are, and we will be able to give a right description. And Swamiji, in a jocular way, he used to talk, that if you go to one doctor, he will give description. If you go to 2 doctors, he will give you consultation. And if you go to one doctor, he will give you clinician. This was a very logical way he used to say like that. So one particular guru whom our conscience says that this is the realized state, this is what I have to submit myself, implicitly and explicitly. Maybe some instances of Guru Swami Jayanti's Maharaj life, and he is able to act tomorrow. But how that transformation takes place? And the realized stage alone can bring the realization. Albert Einstein used to say that you cannot solve a problem at the level at which you create it. If you want to solution the problem, think higher than the level at which you create it. So all of us have got some difficulties and limitations. And if at that level, if we keep on addressing, it will never be able to reach the Brahman. We have to go to the one who has realized. And that is why ultimately going to Brahman is to go to the sound in Vyasa. That is the way out. And because he has intimate experience, only that Guru can reveal the Asana. Otherwise it will be purity. And Paroksha is not wrong. I told you that day also. Intellectual idealism is good. Knowledge of Shara and Akshara and this both is also good. But ultimately solution will come from. So that realized stage we have to go. But in Lenin's mind was ocean of compassion and want everybody to be yes, he or she was. Moses Hamishwanda wanted everybody should be what he was. The place that he was, everybody should be. So that is the compassion of the Guru. And once you go to him, as I said, when you are touched, even by words in whatever way, that grace can be lifted, but that can bring ultimate transformation. So that is that atSivananda, what is self-existent, self-revealing, and self-blissful. It doesn't depend upon anything else. It depends on the very self. So Guru is that self, and you should be that self. So that spirit of seeing atSivananda in him, that spirit of seeing spiritual power in Guru. We should not look upon Guru as a physical or psychological being. We should look him as a divine manifestation, apart from his physical manifestation. Only then we can make the benefit. Yesterday, the stage Srutasundara Sloka is that if we revere Guru in the same way as we revere the Ishvara, the knowledge of the scriptures will be unfolded. That is Srutasundara. So, henceforth, when you approach the Guru, we think of the Pratyaksha Devata in front of me. And that inner real urge, there are two slokas of Bhagavad Gita which we will take tomorrow, how we will qualify it.